So lately, one of the things that's been on my mind for a while is if my attention span is actually getting worse. And I've been thinking about it and just kind of observing myself, just wondering if, like, is my ability to pay attention to things worsening? Is it getting better? Is it more or less the same? And I feel like the influence of technology and social media is definitely affecting our attention span. And it's not, I would say it affects every generation, right? And I want to go into that. And I want to go into my own personal experience with my own attention span and how technology and social media has had an effect on me. So, to give a little context, really growing up, I would say my attention span wasn't always the greatest. I wasn't the greatest at paying attention. And I think that goes for a lot of people. And usually I pay attention and really focus on things that I'm very interested in, right? And I think a lot of people would be on the same page with that. But I get distracted pretty easily. And, for me, like, this is also growing up in an era where technology was emerging. So around middle school is when I actually had a flip phone, and this is before smartphones. This is before the internet was on the phones, on our devices. So the limitations were just text messages, maybe a few games, very primitive games, and also phone calls. So that's all it really was until probably when I got into college or the later part of high school when there was the introduction of smartphones, right? And that really changed the game, and that really changed our psychology and how we as humans operate, and how it also influenced our ability to pay attention to things. And so I would say more or less I was normal. I think for me, even before technology, I'd have a tendency to like really daydream and drift off, especially if things weren't that interesting. And there were times where it was really hard to focus. So, just in general, to give context, it's not like I had the greatest ability to pay attention, while some people may be a lot better at focusing and making sure they are very attentive to the activity that they're involved in. And so, having a smartphone and being in social media, that does affect the attention span because, for one, you have your device that always sends off notifications on messages and notifications on games or updates, things like that, that every time you hear a buzz, a vibration, or a sound, it goes off, and your desire is to look at it immediately, even at the cost of the current activity that you're doing. So a lot of times if let's say you're having a conversation with someone, right, and a buzzing goes off, maybe mid conversation, you immediately look at your phone and disregard what it is that you guys are talking about, and willing to disrupt it because you have a tendency to just immediately respond to a notification or immediately look at your phone or your device when something's going on, right? And so for me, like when I'm interacting with people, when I'm in a social environment, I try not to do that. I think I have a self awareness where I put my phone down and I put it face down. So even if it vibrates, I'm not looking at it. I'm trying to give my undivided attention to the other person, to the party, to everybody, because I value the interaction, the conversation, or I value maybe a lecture or maybe a sermon, a long form content a classroom setting, things like that. I'm not looking at my phone because unless it's needed for like a tool, or for use, a specific use, I wouldn't look at it. I wouldn't look at messages or updates unless there's downtime and I have time to just be able to look at the phone and look at the messages. So I set aside time for that. But I think with a lot of people, it, they have a tough time having the discipline to be able to set boundaries for themselves. And maybe at times where it's inappropriate, it might be rude, they can't help themselves but look at their devices and look at the notifications or whatever updates or whatever's going on. Now, there may be times where a message is urgent or a call is urgent and they need to pick it up and they're able to excuse themselves from the setting and be able to attend to their business with their devices, right? But, those are few cases, and I think a lot of other notifications are probably not as important where you could wait for it and just focus and be present on what you are currently doing. And so for me, in regards to that context, I feel like I really do make an effort to pay attention and be focused on whatever task it is. Just learning how to be present. And I think that is very hard to do given the technology that we have, given that we all need these devices to really function throughout the day. We need it for a lot of things, right? It is so attached to our daily lives, like we have to have it. But it's a tool, and I think it can be used in a very responsible and disciplined way where it's not disruptive to your daily life, where it's not disruptive to your attention span, right? And even when I am watching like a movie, right? If I'm watching it at a theater, because it's in that setting, the likelihood of me looking at my phone is less. But if I'm watching it at home, in the comforts of my home, videos or movies, then I'd be more susceptible to looking at my phone rather than trying to watch the content all the way through. And it's so much easier because you could just press pause. You could pause it and always go back to it and go back and forth. But, the focus and the attention to what you are intaking in from the content might be compromised, or you might be listening to something while you're texting and you lose out on a lot of content that you're supposed to be taking in, right? So that's where the distractions for me can really affect me, and I might not be as productive in that sense. And so I feel like that's one way where I could be better at that, and I could be more self-aware and being more disciplined, and probably in that context while watching videos. But at the same time, it's not so important where I do have to watch something all the way through. You do have the convenience of cutting it off, but the point is it could bother your attention span and really compromise it. And so that's definitely an area I could improve in. And I would also say the introduction of social media and short clips, shorts, short videos, anywhere from like 10 seconds to a minute has really changed how we intake content, right? Because we want something so quick, and usually these short clips become so addictive that we go one thing to another, which YouTube shorts and TikTok and everything. And for me, like I try to limit my use with social media with Instagram, and even recently I've slowed down on going on X. Like I don't really go on X at all. I really cut down on that, but I know I've been glued to that before, just watching, like, staying up to date with current events and all that, and watching all these videos, and obviously TikTok too, because if there's something you're interested in, you go from one clip to another, one video to another, and again, if it's too long and it doesn't captivate you, then you'll move on to the next thing. So when it comes to that, when you want to watch something longer, uh, you're less willing to pay attention to the whole thing because you're just not captivated. It doesn't hit your dopamine, and you don't want to listen to the whole thing, right? So it's affecting the way you approach longer forums and longer conversations. And this has already been addressed, by many people, and there's so many studies in regards to that. And I think I'm just sharing it from a personal perspective, where for me, like, I even like cut a lot of that out because I don't want to be that type of person that gets my attention span compromised. And I'm being, because I care about like my social interactions, my relationships, and I don't want to be disrespectful or rude or cut people off. But I think when your attention span gets compromised like that, you're more susceptible to doing that in real life, because how you interact with it on, your device and swiping constantly and looking for the new clip, new 30-second clip, and if you don't like it within 5 seconds, then you move on to the next one. That's what you could do and with real life interactions potentially, and you could really lose out on maybe these interactions, right? And so I think really it's just important to have that kind of awareness. And I wonder for myself, like, if that's really affecting me. And I think in some sense it is, and it has. Just looking at shorts, I could get carried away too. But I think for me, I've had that prior knowledge of how that could affect me so negatively. So that's why for me, like, I don't even have TikTok, and I only go on Instagram a very few times. And also, it's just I like longer form contents, because also with shorter clips is a lot of things could be taken out of context as well. So you lose out on, the genuine, the transparent meaning of what someone is trying to say, and you could definitely misconstrue it to portray something that really, to portray you, like, you wanna, people can manipulate things to make it something that it really isn't, right? And so that's why I also approach, social media with a lot of caution as well. But I think that's kind of digressing to what I'm trying to get at, because really it's just what I wanted to share was just, is if these type of things are affecting my attention span. And so for me, like, I've put a lot of boundaries, because I think if it really, I think it can really compromise your attention span, and it could really affect the way you interact with people. And I definitely personally seen it with like younger generation and younger kids. So I could see it being harmful if you don't have the appropriate boundaries in or understanding of what these devices and technology and social media is doing to you. And so I think my attention span is okay. At least I have awareness of how it could affect me and how it has affected me in the past. But I really do try to really focus on things and try to be present on the things that are in front of me. And I think that has helped me to be a lot more effective in the things that I do, and help me to be more productive. And I just feel like I live a more happier life in that way, and having these boundaries and these restrictions for myself. But I think having these boundaries is probably more beneficial to me than kind of getting carried away and by all these distractions and all these shorter clips that take away my ability to pay attention. And so I want to bring that to light, and I want to share that from a personal experience, and maybe it could bring some awareness for yourself to see like how technology and social media is affecting the way you pay attention to certain things. And so I hope that's a benefit to you. I just wanted to share that, and that's what's been on my mind. So maybe you can have a long enough attention span, or at least the video can be engaging enough for you to watch it all the way through.